All right. Hi, everyone. I am Melissa Tui, and I am the Ed Tech and Adoption Specialist here at Ozobot. And I also have Heather Myers here joining me. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, like Melissa said, my name is Heather Myers. I am the Content and Community Coordinator at Ozobot, and I'm really excited to be on this webinar with you. And before we start, I just wanted to say thank you all for attending. We know that this is a very overwhelming time for educators and for everybody really, but especially for educators. And our hearts just go out to all of you and to anybody that's been affected by COVID-19 and just everything that's happening around in the world. So we thank you so much for taking the time out and coming to learn more about Ozobot, and we're excited to keep giving you more and more resources. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Heather. We're really excited to be hosting this webinar. It's not in our usual studio, unfortunately, due to the circumstances, but we are excited to feature Rene Perry, who is a Ozobot certified educator and just an incredible educator who has created such amazing content for her students. So our agenda for today is we'll do our giveaway sign up. We are giving away some educator entry kits today. Then we will introduce Rene. She'll walk us through how she creates content for Ozobots. We'll have some Q&A time, and then we'll get to our giveaway. So that's our agenda for today. Go ahead and fill out your name and your email address. You will randomly select the winners at the end. And we do ask that you only enter once. And if you do put in multiple entries, you will be disqualified, unfortunately. So please just put in your information one time so that everyone has a fair chance at winning the prizes. And you must be present for the duration of the webinar. So we will open or have the giveaway sign up open till 4:15. Then we'll close the signups and then draw the winners at the end. And you must be present at the end to claim your prize. So, great. I would like to introduce Rene Perry, who is an incredible educator. She is in Washington, and I put her Twitter handle up here, and she has a lot of insights to share with us. So I'm gonna actually just speak very quickly to what she has in our lesson library. If you type in ozo.bot/Rene, it's actually gonna take you into Ozobot Classroom. And let me actually take you there to show you. She has her own little special link. Once you type that in, you actually get to see all of the innovative content that she's created for Ozobots. And these are really incredible lessons that are super in-depth and super engaging. And I believe one of this innovative content creation webinar activities, that's what she's going to be going through today. So if you're interested in looking through those contents and following along, you can find it there. Again, that link is ozo.bot/Rene. So now I'm going to hand it over to Rene. Rene, would you prefer if you shared the screen so that you can click through the slides?
Yes, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, I will stop my share, and it's all you now. Please welcome Rene Perry, everyone.
Hi, friends. Welcome, and thank you to Melissa and everyone for my introduction. I'm new to Zoom, so I'm new to a lot of things. With the lovely virus thing, there's so many new pieces of data that I am learning, but I'm up and running, and I thank you. We have Ozobot is so easy to work with. I am so very thankful for this company as a certified educator. They've been very, very helpful to me. Hold on, I'm still, okay. Still working slides, hold on. Okay, go. Wanted to move forward. You guys are I'm still like, okay, so there's me. My name's Rene Perry. I'm a STEM educator here in Seattle area, state of Washington. I went to University of Washington with a forensic science focus. I'm a STARS trainer. which means that I'm a certified to instruct other teachers in curriculum development with a focus on coding and programming. I've been teaching inside a classroom for over 15 years. I'm going to try the slide thing again. Hold on. Nope. I'm problem solving slides as we speak, which I worked so challengingly to. Yeah. All right, 4 years ago, my employer at the time owned a group of science-based school, very cool curriculum. The owner taught me many, many things. I'm really thankful. She had really high standards, and this owner wanted to weave computer science into her curriculum science at the time. They wanted somebody to figure out how to incorporate programming into their 5 schools. And at the time, they had like 1,100 students, of which you can see 85% of them were under the age of 7. 65% of those couldn't even read, and 9% didn't even speak English. Nobody wanted this job, but I took it and immediately began problem solving, which led me to Ozobot. And using this one tool inside those classrooms, I was able to design, write, and implement an entire coding curriculum for non-readers, which no other school at the time had. A year later, I was hooked on programming, hooked on robotics, and I was definitely hooked on this little 1-inch robot. I soon started writing lessons for Ozobot. This naturally led me to becoming a certified educator for Ozobot, and a few resume highlights later, I'm led to a new position as a STEM educator in a neighboring district. I now have 637 clients, K through 6, over 3 campuses. I have the privilege of implementing their STEM program and making necessary adjustments to it to keep them aligned to all the state standards. One of those curriculum adjustments that needed to be made was in our robotics class. The school's curriculum really needed a bank of computers. And as a new STEM teacher to that school, I really didn't want to go ask for more funding from a school that just set up 3 brand new STEM rooms. So I started problem solving. And my STEM room did have iPads. So I took a look at the robotic learning objectives from the school, and I ended up combining them with the 10 computer science lessons from Ozobot's Bot Camp. And I created a STEM robotic curriculum, which our school is currently up for a Distinguished School Award for. I live in the state of Washington, where we have a lot of apple tree orchards. And so for this build, I made the real world connection to be a local farm that was recovering from a storm. And students were in teams of 2. We had an engineer and a programmer as a team. And I mapped out a fictitious farm on a 5-foot by 5-foot map containing 10 Ozobot line programs, each containing a bug. The programmers had to read their challenge, they had to find their program on the large map, draw it, and then solve the problem. Meanwhile, the engineer had to support their programmer by building a prototype model for Ozobot to complete this farm task. It was a seed chute or a wagon, tarp pole, and a sweeper. And these students were busy using these Ozobots to mend fences and feed farm animals and push pigs into pens and check lighting and deliver apples or collect eggs from the hen house. It was a huge computer science success. These robotic teams, they owned this project. We had a great time on this build. In order to, on this farm particular curriculum, I used to complete that curriculum design, I ended up using both line and an Ozobotly language. Only recently, though, did I pick up Ozobotly. Most of my lesson builds are using Ozobot's basic programming language, their line and color code. On Vintage CE, Bit was our original robot, and we always had the lesson library. Then we got Evo with all of its upgrades, and new additions went into the lesson library. Then the push for Ozobotly, and more lessons were added into our library. And now we have Ozobot Classroom, but always there's been the lesson library. Ozobot's lesson library is full of lessons you can download and use, and These were created by teachers and programmers with the intent being to break down a large coding concept into more manageable pieces that any teacher or librarian or student could download and successfully use. So if you are currently stuck at home, you should go search through Ozobot's lesson library, because there are some really cool things to do there. And I was searching through, and even I wanted to download some. And sometimes playing somebody else's activity will give you a good idea. And the lesson library, oh, we added a few slides in. You're adorable. I think those are mine. That was not in my original. I combined with Ozobot. The lesson library, so how does a lesson get, those were mine, by the way. And the lesson library, how does a lesson get in there anyway? And how do you come up with an idea for a lesson? And if you're thinking this might be too hard for you, hang in there, because I'm going to walk you through the 6 steps I use to create an Ozobot lesson. At the end of our webinar today, you can link and download the lesson file we're going to build together today during class. And I think that's pretty cool. So let's get to work. Well, every successful leader will agree that the more clearly defined a goal is, the more likely one is to achieve it. So as a lesson designer, I narrowed down what a successful lesson would mean to me. It's personal. You may not have one. This ultimately, though, for me, filters and drives my entire build. And my goal when I build a curriculum is to provide an activity that a student is willing to participate in, that once engaged in that activity, will gather the information they need and be rewarded in a way that they're willing to try programming again. Now that I've got myself motivated, I start my design build with step 1. First thing I do is I need to clearly define what computer science learning objective or skill I want to either introduce or enhance a student's knowledge in. This lesson could be on how to communicate or program Ozobot using one of its 2 languages. We could be practicing codes, loops, developing a plan, decomposition, addressing challenges, or debugging. For today's build, though, we're going to take one of our basic programming learning objectives, and we're going to choose algorithm design. I ran a search, by the way, in Ozobot's lesson library, and there are 24 lessons on algorithm design, and that's a lot. So it's going to challenge us to pick up our toys and find another sandbox to play in today. But we did complete step 1. We know we want to create an Ozobot game or activity that has students writing code or modifying code in some way. So now what? Step 2. We need to know your audience. Knowing my age of my students that I'm writing for is crucial. Every age bracket has different fine and large motor skills, learning objectives, attention spans. I also need to know how many kids there's going to be in that room. Does my client want them sitting individually? Do they work in pairs? Should I have them up moving around in a group build? Understanding and working within these parameters will only help you avoid making adjustments later. For today's build, let's design an algorithm activity that's going to focus on individual programming or might have our students coding in pairs. And for our age bracket, we're just going to design an activity on algorithms for early readers, and we're going to work our way all the way up to preteen. So that leads us right into step 3. We're going to pick a language. If you're writing a lesson for Ozobot, you either pick 1 or 2 or both of those languages. You can communicate with Ozobot in their line codes or Ozoblocky. We can use Ozoblocky and flash load our bot with the directions that we need. Today, though, we're going to do a quick build in both languages. I'm going to show you how to go about designing an algorithm activity for Ozobot and how I would add STEM elements into my lesson build. So let's keep going. A quick review. we know we want to design a game or activity for 1 to 2 students that will have them constructing or modifying an algorithm line for Ozobot. And we want to use both of Ozobot's languages, which leads us to step 4. Step 4, we need to pick a theme or a concept. This is where I try to make that real world connection. It is easier for my student if they're already familiar with or interested in the topic. Then I only have to teach them programming. They'll be more willing to assist their bot if they can connect with, in some way, that robot. Plus, my main focus isn't science, tech, or math. It's how to build an algorithm with a side of science, math, or art thrown in there. In almost all my lesson builds, the theme or topic was kind of handed to me. A lesson was designed to specifically solve a problem. Patient 0 was designed to solve a programming challenge. Due to external moments, our STEM room had only 3 weeks to teach programming. We were slotted to teach Tinker, and anybody who's used Tinker or Scratch, we have Ozobot, know that you can only pass so much data to new students with iPads on what programming is. We might even play an input-output or maybe an arrow grid game, and that would be week 1, which would leave you 2 weeks to show students how to log in, navigate a website, and how to use blocky code, and then let them go. A few sessions on Tinker. You might actually get a video game started, but only if you have enough time. And we've had successful video games. I'm not knocking Tinker in any way, shape, or form. I have great video of my kids using Tinker. But in 3 weeks, it would be a little frustrating for the workload versus what they're going to get out of it. So I started problem solving and started thinking about whether I could solve the programming problems using the bots. And what would the modified curriculum look like if I did use the bots to meet the school's computer science and medical science objectives? So, after looking at the school's curriculum learning objectives, I decided to introduce Ozobot to the students, and I had them become familiar with their bot on week 1. I had students start drawing lines. By the end of the hour, kids were dropping codes down and programming their bot, and they were successful already on day 1. On day 2, I had them apply their current new programming knowledge by sequencing the life cycle of a germ. I combined a little science with robotics, and I had awesome program layouts. They clearly understood how to direct their robot by drawing consistent lines. They were sequencing events, adding codes, problem solving. Students were collaborating on a design model while they were sharing stories about their broken legs and how they had their tonsils taken out, and they left successful programmers. By week 3, students were analyzing fictitious medical data, programming Ozobot to mimic the events of patient 0 on a school campus. And these programmers were reading and analyzing data, problem solving, formulating plans, writing codes. They were testing, debugging. They even used blank maps to make up their own medical stories. That was a great day. We needed more than an hour. Great lesson idea, though. Which leads us, sometimes an idea for a lesson just comes out of the blue. After Melissa and I were emailing about the class, I was driving home, and on the radio, NASA was trying to encourage the next generation of space explorers by putting out STEM quizzes. And the host of the show I was listening to was reading off some of the questions. I found myself staying with them just so I could play the game. So in honor of NASA car ride, we're going to choose space as our theme today. And by the way, I did a quick lesson search on Ozobot for space, and there are only 5, so good for us. We know we want to design a space algorithm game for 1 to 2 kids to play using both languages. Now what? This leads us to step 5, the build. This is where all your content comes from, and this is about 80% of your workload. Up until now, every step had a clear answer. Learning objective, algorithm design, how many kids, 1 to 2, what language, both, theme, space, but not anymore. This is where we go into the realm of what if. This is where we brainstorm all the ways we can possibly get our programmers to want to write code to move astronaut Ozobot through space. Our goal is for a student to want to code. And if we scaffold in some STEM concepts, bonus points for us. So here we go. I always start my lesson build with the easiest group, and for me, that's actually non-readers. Take a minute and remember your early non-reading years and think back to when your shoes kind of lit up or they sparkled and you didn't even care if they were on the right feet or not. How do you go about getting this age bracket to understand programming concepts, much less drawing a consistent quarter-inch line for more than a couple inches? They can do it for a wee bit, which I'll show you. This is a challenge, and I solved it by taking some of the stress out of coding and the drawing of the line itself. And there are many other programming skills we can focus on at this age bracket. We don't need it to be about drawing that line. Kids at this age bracket are excellent problem solvers, and they're mathematicians, and they're truly creative coders. And what they're not good at usually is drawing consistent long lines. So for this age bracket, I provide the pre-Ks, this bracket, with chunks of pre-printed code that they simply arrange together and construct an algorithm. This age bracket is really good with the concept of 3, like a beginning, a middle, and end, small, medium, large. So I kept it at 3 cards for our algorithm build. And you can see here, during this space algorithm activity, I designed us 3 space cards with a story. And when you read through Ozobot's space mission, a camera has been bumped on the space shuttle and a lens needs to be repositioned. And so astronaut Mikhail needs to go out there and fix that camera. And alas, the tool has floated away. Ozobot needs to take the astronaut a new one. In order to do so, Ozobot needs to follow the astronaut's air hose line. So then I would encourage the young programmer to construct or sequence the air hose line so Ozobot can travel out to that astronaut and save the day. And students will move those cards around and match up the Ozobot line, and you can test it then by running Ozobot out to astronaut, and you have a successful programmer with no stress so far. Then, to enhance this, though, that's cool. Well, yay, Ozobot, woohoo, he gets to the end. Notice that the code card has like no ending. I dropped in a color code at the end there, but your card only has a black, it just stops. So to enhance this algorithm design, what I would do next was I would have them start debugging the program. And at this age bracket, debugging a line, if they can't even tie their shoe, debugging a line means me dropping an Avery sticker over part of that code line and taking out part of it. Uh-oh, like a collapsed bridge, there's a gap. Then I'd encourage the student to connect the missing line by using a marker. Now, connecting line where they can visually at this age bracket see 2 quarter-inch lines and they're only connecting them, that's a successful programmer. They're gonna get that line in there and there's gonna be no drama at all. You could run the bot right over, woohoo. That's when then I'd probably ask them to put on a yay code on the end and have them drop in some sort of woohoo code, end code on that. I wouldn't do a turnaround code yet because I'd add a math element to this. I'd have a woohoo, like an end code win on the end, and then I'd add my math element. And how I would do that would be, first thing I would do would be I would put Ozobot on the space shuttle and start him out. And I would say, how long do you think it's going to take him to get out to that astronaut? And I'd start Ozobot. And then I'd say, let's count together. And then I would have them count it out loud. Then I'd have them write the number. It's going to be under 20. So you have them write 10 down there, or whatever it is. And then what you're going to do is you go, you know what? Let's test it. We're scientists. Let's test it. So then I get out my app. or my stopwatch, something. And then I'd get it like technical. Then I'd get the 0.23 down there. Oh, yay, this is cool. Then I'd be like, let's see if we can find 10-second lines around the rim. Then I'd get a black line, a yarn, a flexible yarn string line, and I'd have them cut it and measure it to that distance right there, walk around the room, try and find 10-second lines. Then I'd bring them back and I'd put them in, the line is movable. We can move that straight line into different lines. Is it still going to be 10 seconds? I don't know. So I would start adding different things in and have them start drawing by that point, and they're going to be totally focused on that activity. That would be a self. That would be an easy activity for one print download. That's pretty good. Then, but that's only going to keep obviously a pre-K, maybe a K involved for like, 30 minutes or so running around our room and drawing and adding a math extension. We might be at 45. So we need to increase that challenge without increasing the project space, because we want to keep our activity at 1 to 2 students to work on. So if we had the programmers maybe collect some science data, then maybe if they used it to construct a program for Ozobot, maybe that'd be cool. So here, programmers, this would be for maybe an age bracket. I'm thinking I'd probably do this from like a 1 to 3, from 1st grade to 3rd grade. And here programmers are spinning for 3 random planets first. So you've got your pie chart there going, and they're going to collect data regarding the distance from the sun, and charts are designed, and then an algorithm line is measured to match those planets' distance from the sun. So they're mapping in distance from sun, then they're going to take their ruler and they now have to match an algorithm line the same distance and mimic how far it is so that Ozobot can travel that same distance. And then they're going to do the same thing. They're going to estimate their time, then they're going to time it. Then they're going to compare. The best thing probably for this project would be the comparing of the data, because you're going to get some great video, you'll get great photos. They're totally going to understand the algorithm. They're going to transfer data from like 3 different charts and then write an algorithm to match it. So, but you're going to get a lot of other math data going out of this, science data going out of this, and the comparing and sharing of findings is going to be a really good moment. Is all of the Saturn going to be the same time frame when they compare their results? That's going to be kind of part of that cool part right there. But that's only going to keep people obviously going for so long too. So we need to up it one more time. This is for older age brackets. Did you get my other slides? Yay. So for older age bracket completing a space algorithm activity, I would get them moving around a bit more. While on a NASA website, while I was investigating and doing some little research there, I found that 15 nations collaborated in building our space station that orbits our Earth. And so I took this back and I designed 15 sequential STEM space cards. After the space card is cut, you fold it and stand it upright. On one side, there's an image of the planet or object in space. And on the other side, it has interesting facts and data. And the idea is that kids would randomly need to be able to go up to that table, choose a card, or you randomly hand it to them. They're going to get a white piece of paper, which is their section in space. They're then going to have to organize or sequence themselves and their space, their code section, in amongst 15 of them. Once they get themselves and their bodies organized, they're going to have to draw a consecutive code line that's going to have to go all the way through 15 cards. Then they would have to take it back, and you could add the science data to that by having them drop in what their object is and label it, maybe throw in a fact from space, and then they'd have to all come back together and test it. But that's not the cool part. Here's the cool part. So what I did was, oh yeah, so you can time it, of course, you can add gaps, things like this. Oh, here's the cool part, the stem, that gap. There's a reason that's there. So classrooms, there are only 15 nations that collaborated on that project, but the average classroom has more than 15. We have about 20. So to add the STEM element, I added 5 STEM space cards. And each of these STEM space cards will need to be inserted into a specific place inside that original code line. So for example, there is an actual meteor shower that always resides within certain areas in space. So I have them inserting. So they're going to have to go take their card, find these 2 people, insert their card, and adjust the code line appropriately and add their STEM element. And on these, I have them doing things like making a meteor shower, space costumes. They're making space measuring tools because apparently astronauts grow 3 inches. So they're making really cool STEM measuring tools and planets and star constellations. You could have kids add codes, estimate time on your bot. You could have them video the bot and upload it. That's always cool. You can always, another thing on this one is one of the things I did was I made ping pong ball planets. I took a ping pong ball and I kind of smashed one side of it so that it would stay flat. And then I, oh, you can see one right there. There's Earth right on there by the little space shuttle. That's a ping pong ball that I colored. So that's another thing you could add on there. I'm going to, they'd be happy. They'd be happy. I'd actually add some extra paper if they wanted to take their piece home so they could actually add extra size onto it. That'd work really well. But it wouldn't work for an older age bracket. That's going to work for up until, you know, that'll entertain them maybe even for an intro for your 4th and 5th. You're going to need to move into Ozobot by this point. So I decided to add science in by designing a game board that had our sequential planets as they orbited the sun. That was going to be our visual storyboard for Ozobot. Now we need to get our students to want to write the story for Ozobot in Ozobot. And the very first thing we need to do is start with one simple space task. We're going to see if we can get them to write enough code to move our robot from one planet to another. So let's have Ozobot stuck on a planet, and our programmer is going to need to have him fly back home. We're going to have to give him directions. So who of us has never pushed the go home button on our GPS car, right? All right, so to add a little bit of randomness, who's to say what planet? They could actually pick a planet off that board. I decided to add in a little random moment to it. So I added a STEM component by adding a space cube. They can roll it and place the bot on the planet that was rolled. And then when they open Ozobot and program the bot back to Earth, yay, they could roll and sequence another planet into the program. They could modify their algorithm. After a while though, none of us just wants to keep adding more code. They're gonna need a bigger purpose or reward. That's cool for a while, but to keep them going, we're gonna have to give them a little more than that. So I added this piece. And this is a random board. So after they did the little dice, same game board, you can see I'm using the same space board over there on the right. But now I've added in this middle piece. Now the middle piece is kind of what we're going to use and to build an algorithm. Now the building of an algorithm is not building a line algorithm. We're now building an algorithm that we're going to transfer into this visual algorithm that they're going to construct. And they're then going to transpose that into Ozobot to move our bot around. So the first thing we do is in the story, you can see there's little cards. So I'll get to that, I guess. Those little cards are, these cards are space elements. I made all the planets to have a space element that only you can find on that particular planet. And so Ozobot, the scientists here, are lacking certain elements and they need astronaut Ozobot to go get them. And so Ozobot is going to construct this algorithm for us using this random chart. And so he goes down and he picks the planets for our algorithm. We open Ozoblockly and we would write that. Now the cool part about that is I added our STEM element by adding our math, because each of those components, those science components, have really cool values to them. So whatever Ozobot goes and collects now, he now gets 10% of that net worth. So now they're adding up how much that algorithm is worth, and it's going to change depending on what Ozobot chooses randomly. So each algorithm is going to have a different math equation to it as well. So that's kind of how I upped that idea right there. So these, if I were to add all these 5 together, these 5 activities, I would actually think they'd be an innovative way to teach a group of kids from pre-K all the way up. If I had a group that came in for Space Day and we had a bunch of bots there and I needed an algorithm activity that would be quick and easy to teach, they could come in, they could feel like a successful programmer, they might even be able to take something home. And I had 30 minutes to get a bunch of data across. This would be a fun way to be able to meet the needs of whether they could read or whether they were early readers, whether they were really into the science part. This had like a lot of different activities. I would actually bunch this together and feel that this was colorful enough. The cost was nominal. A teacher could easily download this. There's not a lot of prep time. They're actively drawing an algorithm or writing it in blocky code. My students are being rewarded by what they're doing and taking home. Their goals are achievable. I'd lay odds they'd return to my class and feel confident enough to try another programming activity with me. I feel actually as a goal, I feel as a lesson designer, I feel I met my original goal. I would feel comfortable sending this lesson to Melissa, which leads me to part 6. Organize and review. This is where we would start adding our support material that you may need, your game may need to be successful. Instructions, time frames, videos, photos, anything that is helpful in supporting your idea and getting that idea across to somebody else so they can implement it in the same way. That's what you need to do. And then we would be adding a cover on the front, looking up and dropping all my standards on the back. And when I had that ready, I'd open Ozobot's lesson creator on my dashboard and walk through the easy steps in lesson creator. There's like five tabs, 5 easy. And when I mean easy, it's like easy. I uploaded this in less than an hour, your game pack that you just saw. It's on there for you. And that was less than an hour for me to upload that. So it is easy to do. And I know we probably have some extra time. And I know there's a robot giveaway. So I'm going to hand the floor back over to Melissa and kind of let her monitor our time from here. Yay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Renee. I know just looking at the chat that there are everyone's so engaged in what you had to share and your process. I just want to thank you again for spending the time and sharing your knowledge with everyone that's here. We would love to take some questions and answers from Renee. So I'm not sure if we should allow, Heather, do you think it's better to have people type in the chat any questions that they have for Renee? Or I don't know if there's a way that we can unmute everybody or allow everyone to talk. I think you're on mute, Heather, sorry. There you go.
Sorry about that. Maybe if Cass wants to read out some questions. I think that's what we did in the last one, and it went pretty well. So
great, perfect. We have another Ozobot team member, Cassandra, here with us, who's been helping us monitor the chat.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people here know what it's like to work from home right now. So if my dog barks, I apologize. I'm going to try, if anyone who asked questions to Renee earlier in the chat wants to send them again, that would be great. But I'll go through and find the questions that I saw earlier. So I know that someone wondered, Renee, what you use to make the materials for your lesson.
Oh, yeah, I do know Photoshop. The problem with Photoshop is you have to use a lot of real photos in order to use that program, and a lot of what's out there right now for educators is clip art. So I use Publisher. I use Publisher to make everything that I do, and I found it very easy to work with.
Awesome, thank you.
There
are some more. Sorry, my dog was barking as I predicted. So another one was, should have been copying and pasting these, huh? Let's see. And Heather and Melissa, if you see any while I'm scrolling back, feel free to read those out while I'm looking.
Okay. Yeah, I think some people are asking if we could share the slides. So if you have registered for this webinar, you will get emailed a copy of the video. And if it's okay with Renee, I will share her slides as well. We can get you that link so you can look through the slideshow as well, if that's all right with you, Renee.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely. I know that somebody asked about getting more bots, and I just wanted to take a second to highlight the Certified Educator program. Renee is a certified educator, and with the Certified Educator program, what we ask of you is to submit 3 high-quality lessons. I actually review the lessons, and when I look at them, I ask if I handed this to another teacher, would they be able to teach the lesson? With all of Renee's content, but I look at it, she's set everybody up for success. The teacher teaching it, the students learning it. She has a fully fleshed out lesson plan. Not that I expect all lessons to look like Renee's, because she is, such a high quality and exemplar educator. But with those 3 lessons that we ask you to submit, they do need to be fully fleshed out so that any educator would be able to teach it pretty much immediately. Once you submit your 3 lessons, I reach out and invite you to submit a video cover letter. Once that is submitted, once you're accepted into the program, we actually send you a free 12-bot kit with the new classroom kit, with the new charging cradle for you to use. And all that we ask in return is that you submit 3 lessons a year and present at 1 conference a year. And we're pretty flexible with that conference requirement, since we know that it can be challenging for teachers with their schedules and with conference parameters to present at a conference. But we're willing to work with you to figure that out, whether you want to make your conference presentation a PD for teachers at your school or at your district. Pretty much we're just looking for you to help spread the word about Ozobots, so we're flexible with that. In addition to that, we had a webinar about the Certified Educator program 2 weeks ago. So if you want more information, I did put a link to the old webinars in the chat, and you're welcome to take a look at that to get more information. And Renee, I don't know if you have any comments about what the Certified Educator program and what your experience has been like, but feel free to chime in as well.
Oh, you're adorable. Ozobot's been extremely in a company that is, I call them my 2 o'clocker company, because I can be on really late at night and send over an email and somebody will reply really late at night. So I love that everybody works like 24/7, not to say that you should do that to Melissa, very naughty, but Ozobot's very easy to work with. And for me, as a certified educator, I go around and my job is I train other teachers. So part of my spreading the word is I go to other schools and I show them how to use the bot and how easy it would be to implement that bot into their program somehow. So you can find a way. There's a way that's just right for you, and they're easy to work with. The idea is that you're getting out there and you're presenting and you're showing other people how easy it is to code. I've used this robot. Is so social. I've used him with like my special needs. If I have a spectrum child, I love these bots. I used to start trying to code with spectrum, with other like blocky codes, and the problem with some of them are some of the activities you have to do within the coding, and they're sensitive. They're a special little group, and Evo talks, and you can bond with this. They immediately attach onto this. They will program just to be around this little bot. It is easier. If my job is to get your kid to program, this bot is the easiest way within the first. You might move on to other things, but I guarantee you the easiest way into robotics or programming, hands down, you give me one of these bots, I can teach people that don't even speak the same language to code. I love this bot. It's social. You want to touch it. You want to play with it. You want to know more about it. It is very easy. It's you pull this thing out and people come over to want to know about this robot. I love this little robot. I was able to connect with community people. You saw on that one slide, I managed to get Chick-fil-A and John Deere and Washington Tractor, and I walked into companies. I showed my kids the design process. I was asking them to do something big. I was asking them to automate a 5-foot robotic farm within 5 weeks and build prototypes. And I needed a way to motivate them. And my way to motivate these programmers was to follow the design process. And part of it for an engineer of any kind is to share your findings. And so what I did was I stepped up to bat and I went out into the community and I found each of these programming teams, somebody out there in the community that wanted to hear what they had to do. And it made a huge difference. Normally kids that would be, you know, doing their own thing in your class, man, they were stepping up to show off what they did. And somebody asked me, why do you think this one was so successful? Why was this science fair? Was it the Ozobot? And I actually think it was. And the reason is because these kids couldn't take that little board home. This wasn't a science project their parent could take home and do for them. These kids were coming in to make sure, and when they knew people out there in the big world were going to show up and look at what they had to say, they were on that section programming. They were debugging. They were making sure that bot worked. They did not want to fail, and they owned that project. They ran those bases that day, and that was a home run hit, man. And I do think it was because of the bots. They really bond with it. They were climbing over each other to get the lines drawn and build little prototypes. And I do think it was the bot. It's really social. It's easy to use. You may move programmers, obviously you can't stay in this code forever, but what an intro. This bot can make and break a class. It's the easiest thing. In 3 weeks, I can pass tons of programming data. I mean, not just coding data, I mean problem solving and networking and collaborating and all that they're gonna have to do. I mean, look at the world right now. These are skills we need to teach programmers in that age bracket. They need to be able to do these big world things because we're giving them big world problems, and we need to give them the skills that they're going to need to be able to solve them, and programming is definitely one. And all the skills attached to programming are definitely a win, and this robot is definitely the easiest way in.
Amazing.
I know, I love this robot, man.
Thank you so much, Rene.
I love this robot. It's easy to program with this robot.
We have a question from Kathy, which I think, Rene, you'd be perfect to respond to. Her question is, she said, I see my students once a week. Do you have any suggestions for continuity from one week to the next?
Yeah, I usually will finish one particular concept. So like on that patients, I love the funnel concept, what I'm calling now that I'm building, and that's what I'm calling a funnel concept. And it's where you're taking for kids when they first get in, the bot is social. So we might as well grab onto that and use it. And so what I do is when they first get in there, I have a group project, something that's going to move them around, like that space algorithm. They're going to have to line up. They're going to have to meet people. They're going to have to get in there. They're going to have to get that line going, you know. And then I usually will move them into an Ozobot moment. Where then after that moment, I settle them down, and then I move them into a different moment that would focus on an individual activity or something that they could take home. And when I manage more than 1 week, I make sure that whatever it is congruent for that week, and I can build on whatever it is I just taught them for the next week. So for me, knowing how many weeks that I'm planning for is really important for me, because then I'm real big on laying the steps out, because it's education, man, and part of it's about sales and selling to the kids by letting them congruently, confidently know that we're building on something you already know. It's easier to programming. Anybody teaching programming, you walk into our age bracket, and when you say the word program, you'll actually see people physically move back in their seat, right? I mean, they're like, you just lost half your class, right? We can't have that. If my goal is that kid to voluntarily want to code Ozobot, then I can't lose half my class right off the bat. This bot's really social. So one of the first things I usually do is get them moving around. Then I settle them down into their little ones or twos, and then I have them focus on whatever and nail that concept in, whatever it is. So if it were algorithm design, at the end of that first thing, it would be really congruently making their own algorithm congruently with their bot by the time they left. Then I would add on to that by dropping in codes. Then I would add in a STEM element after that. So each week I would add on to whatever element. So for me, I really do like to know how many weeks I'm working with, and that helps me build my lessons, and that way I can build and on any design.
Great, thank you so much. I think it's time to move on to the giveaway, but if you have any questions for Renee, feel free to reach out to her on Twitter, and if it's okay with you, Renee, we'll also include Twitter handle in the email that goes out tomorrow. Would that be all right?
Totally, you bet.
Awesome, great. So we're gonna move on to, sorry, let me get these slides back up. I just wanted to share with everybody that if Renee has inspired you to create some content, I know I saw in the chat that other educators were already thinking about their lessons and what they wanted to create. Contribute to the Ozobot Classroom lesson library. This is how we support one another as educators to grow and to deliver meaningful content to our students. So the more that we share, the better it is for all of our students. So I highly encourage everyone to check out our lesson creator. Now we've done our questions and comments, so we're actually going to move on to giveaway time. And Heather will tell us more about the giveaway. Take it away, Heather.
Okay, so we are giving away 5 Evo Educator entry kits, and I have the Excel sheet up with all of your responses. Thank you to everybody that entered. Melissa, do we want Renee to say some random numbers, and I'll just look at the sheet and see?
Yeah, for a totally random experience, or a totally random drawing, I think that would be great. What number should she choose between?
Okay, let me see. Between 3 and 56.
25. 46, 13, 17, 42,
25, 36.
13, 17, 42.
Okay, so let me see here.
And while Heather is getting that information together, I do want to highlight that we have two members of our audience that we are actually featuring in 2 weeks for another webinar that is guest hosted by 2 other certified educators, and it's all about how to teach math with Ozobots. That's Lisa Richardson and Nikki Jones. They've been active in the chat with some great ideas, sharing their ideas. I'm really excited for them to share all about their lessons that they've taught with Ozobots in the realm of math. So if you haven't signed up for that webinar, I highly encourage you to. It's going to be a very similar format to this one, where Nikki will speak about elementary math instruction with Ozobots, and then Lisa will be speaking about middle school and high school math instruction. And we're really excited to be featuring them and to hear all of their amazing ideas. So if you enjoyed this webinar and got a lot out of it, I highly encourage you to join us in 2 weeks.
Okay, hold on, I'm getting the last name right now.
The suspense is building.
And thank everybody for the lovely rough start. That was, took me a moment, man, to figure out so many new platforms for remote learning, and thank you for holding on with me. Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee.
Okay, so I have our 5 winners. The first winner is Brittany Lundberg. The second is Amy Beckett. Then we have Kathy Jarrett, Stephanie Hildreth, and Paul Falio. I think I said all those names right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations
job.
to our
Good
5
job.
winners.
We'll be reaching out to them, Heather, and to get their information so that we can send them the EEKs or the educator entry kits. Yes. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you all in 2 weeks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.